Good morning, everyone. I'm Christy Sommerfeld from the Northern New York Library Network. My pronouns are she, her. Thank you for joining us for the ESLN Services webinar series. In today's session, we'll be hearing about Ask Us 24/7. Before we get started, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping. We will be utilizing the chat as well as the Q&A feature for this webinar. We'd appreciate it if you could change your settings so your messages are going to everyone rather than hosts and panelists. You can change this by opening your chat box and clicking on the drop-down menu above the text box. Feel free to introduce yourself there now. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions so they don't get lost in the chat. You can find that towards the bottom center of your screen. Our presenter will be taking questions after their presentation. Live captioning is available for this webinar. To toggle the subtitles on or off, click the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and choose either show subtitle or hide subtitle. This webinar will be recorded and a link to the recording will be shared in the next few days. The email containing the link will also provide information about getting a certificate of attendance. The forms to both request a certificate of attendance and evaluate this webinar will also be posted in the chat towards the end of the session. If you are unfamiliar with ESLN, this refers to Empire State Library Network, an organization comprising the 9 reference and research library resources councils, each a multi-type library system in New York State. ESLN's unique structure provides support for libraries and achieves all types of and archives of all types of sizes in a statewide platform for shared services and collaborations. To spread the word about the work we're doing on behalf of New York libraries, we have scheduled webinars with staff and service providers on the last Friday of each month at 10 a.m. This is the 6th of a 9-part series exploring the various services ESLN has to offer. We'll be covering such topics as New York Heritage, Ask the Lawyer, Empire Library Delivery, and more. You must register for each webinar separately, and they are free and open to all. If you're interested in more sessions in the ESLN Services webinar series, you can visit the ESLN website, and we'll put a link to that in the chat as well. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter today. Kenney is the Engagement and Education Services Coordinator at Winnie Lurk and statewide administrator for Ask Us 24/7. Thank you, Caitlin.
All right, thank you, Christy. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm going to assume yes. I'm just going to take a minute to share my screen. I have some slides for you. 1 second. Okay, as Christy mentioned, I am the Engagement Education Services Coordinator for the Western New York Library Resources Council. I'm also the statewide administrator for Ask Us 24/7. What that means is I essentially manage the New York State cooperative. We have 45 academic libraries currently in the service. We do not have any public libraries or school libraries currently in the service right now, but we did have some previously. I liaise with Springshare, which is the software for the provides the software for the Ask Us 24/7 service and for the 24/7 Global Reference Cooperative. I coordinate questions. I help the librarians do troubleshooting with chat. I provide statistics. I do all sorts of random things that come up, answer questions that come up as we go along. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the service and what it is that we do and why reference chat is still such an essential part of librarianship. So the history of the service began actually with the Western New York Library Resources Council. Winnie Lurk applied for a Lister grant in 2001. Originally, they were just exploring the concept of virtual reference, and they applied for a grant to have a full symposium with different vendors and different librarians who were participating in virtual reference at their institution and talking about all the different issues that come up with it, all the different options of software that are out there. I mean, there was OCLC service, there was library help, LibChat, I think, was another one. So there were a lot of different options out there that we wanted to explore and see if it would be beneficial to have more of a cooperative model instead of just individual libraries managing the service. So we had, I think, over 40 vendors and librarians participating in that symposium. After that, we decided that they wanted to create a pilot project. And they enlisted the help of several local librarians in Western New York to staff a service that ran for 24 hours a week from 12 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And they realized pretty quickly there was not enough traffic coming in during those hours. A lot of traffic seemed to come in closer to 5 or after 5 p.m. And also staff was stretched too thin during those times. So they cut it down to 20 hours and changed the hour range. Eventually, they decided to move to a more cooperative model with OCLC, which were 24/7 reference, and have the backup service that the librarians provided. The service was originally called Ask a Western New York Librarian. When they migrated to the 24/7 reference consortium in 2003, they changed it to Ask Us 24/7 and brought a new URL with that name and ordered marketing materials. And then they expanded the service to the rest of the state of New York. So the New York Cooperative ended up encompassing all the regions of New York State. Now it's maintained by librarians both nationally and internationally to provide 24-hour, 7 days a week service. We have libraries in the Global Cooperative from the United Kingdom, and we actually help UK library patrons as well in exchange for UK librarians helping New York and US library patrons. In 2020, Springshare actually bought the OCLC 24/7 reference consortium. It was a big deal. It was a big job to migrate everybody over to the LibAnswer platform, which was completely different from OCLC's platform, completely different. And it took the migration, we started migrating in February 2020, so right before the pandemic, which made things difficult because I had planned to go to some of the libraries and actually do some one-on-one training, which is something I've been doing previously with the OCLC service. And we couldn't do that, but we managed to do it virtually. We had a lot of virtual meetings and webinars and officially completed the migration in June of 2020. So what do? We virtually connect patrons with a librarian, and it's a real live person on the other end. It's not, a robot chat. It's not AI. It's a person there to help the patron figure out how to research their topic, how to log into their databases provided by their institution, how to place a book on hold, how to all the same kinds of questions that you get in person. Even how to download books on the Kindle or the Nook or tablet. So we do all of the same things that a librarian might do in person, but we're doing it online. And it's a lot easier for some patrons to be able to just hop on their computer or their phone and be able to message a librarian, ask for help with something because maybe they can't get to the library right now. I've had questions from people who, had some sort of injury or were sick and couldn't make it to the library, but they needed to figure out some sort of resource, either, picking up their hold or they have a paper that's due and it has to be done. So we make it a little bit easier for patrons to connect with the librarian instantly. There are two queues for both library types. There's a New York academic reference queue, global academic reference queue, and then the public librarian will monitor a New York Public Library queue and a global global public library queue. So when you ask a question, if you're coming from the academic library, your questions will go to the academic librarians. If you're coming from a public library, your questions are going to go to the public librarians on the service. So you don't get that kind of mixture. So that's also really helpful on the librarian end of things, because they can focus on the type of service that they're already providing instead of trying to figure out the rules and policies of all library types. They can just focus on their library type. Patrons can initiate chat through their participating library website or through askus247.org. There are widgets that we can put on our website, or a link that will link to the chat module, and the patron will just go to that portal, type in their question, and receive an answer almost immediately. We try and respond within a minute or less. No more than 2 or 3 minutes. That's too long for someone to wait. Patrons can be anonymous if they so choose. Some libraries have it set up so that there's maybe a student logged in with their email account. Some have it set up receive follow-up information from their home library. So if on the off chance that you're helping someone from a different library than yours, you're not sure of the answer, you can't find it anywhere, you can create a ticket and the person will be able to get a follow-up from their local librarian. So that kind of helps mitigate some of the issues in terms of not being able to find the answer for the patron, but the patron still feels like they've been helped. Why is chat important? It's just a new way to meet patrons. We're living in an increasingly technological world. More people are on their phones, more people are using chat. You're seeing it more on a lot of store websites. Amazon uses it, lots of retail use chat. So people are just used to it now. Even though libraries have been doing it far ahead of most of the retail-based options, more people are using the chat service than ever before. Social media is also very popular. I know a lot of libraries meet their patrons on social media as well. But this kind of provides a more private interaction for the patron instead of being tracked by social media resources, having their data sold. That's not happening with ASCUS 24/7. The internet also makes information both easier and difficult to find. So someone could be Googling for, their paper topic and not be able to find the specific answers that they want. So they can just hop right over to the ASCUS 24/7 website and type in their question there and actually get results from someone who knows what they're doing. It's also just convenient and it's easy to use. So the biggest question is, how do you, as a librarian on the service, know the policies of a library that you're not even remotely affiliated with? How do you figure out how to help someone in the UK, for example? Every library in the service, in the global service, has a FAQ. It's essentially a profile for the library. This information is only available for the chatting librarian. So only the chatting librarian can see this information in the library profile. They can, when they're chatting with a patron, and the patron, if they've logged in through one of the library's portals for chat, it will have in the patron information page where they're coming from. So it will tell you they're coming from a sex library or from Dutchess County Library. And it will have a link to that. And it will also have a link to the library's profile information. And this will include the contact information for the library, important URLs such as direct links to the catalog, to their website, and other necessary direct links, important policies to know. So this might be anything from rules of borrowing, how to place a hold, database access, printing policies. So pretty much anything a patron could ever ask or usually asks, that information is in there. It will also have immediate changes, which was really important during COVID because so many libraries had changed their policies, their hours. So rather than changing the entire page, they just put an announcement on the top with the new policy, temporary policy for COVID time. It also often has a librarian-only login for databases, which is incredibly helpful if you're trying to search a library's database for a patron and giving them access to the articles. As you know, you usually can't access databases without a library barcode. But if you're helping someone from another library that's not your home library, you won't have access to a database normally. So most of these libraries have been able to provide a special login for the librarians, so the chatting librarians, so that they can research databases from those libraries as easily as the student might, and thus be able to direct the student or patron using their home library's resources. It's very, very helpful. So that's how librarians can chat with any patron from any library using that library's FAQ. And it makes it seem like we know what we're talking about. And then when you get to a point where a patron has a question that's just too intricate or needs further follow-up, you can create a ticket. Often we would have to create a ticket for more specific questions such as obituary lookups, because those resources usually aren't available online. They might require microfilm. Or if a patron is having a problem with their card, their library card account is blocked or something, we would have to create a ticket for that, because again, that's something we can't access. We can't access another library, catalog system or account, the listing of accounts to look up a card. But for most questions, we can answer them and provide the patron with an answer pretty quickly. Excuse me. These are usage statistics. This is dating back to 2005, which is when we started really keeping intense track of these statistics. As you can see, it went way up in 2020. It went even higher in 2021. And I think part of that was due, even though the pandemic is ongoing in 2021, places were starting to open up more, but so many people had gotten used to the service in 2020 that I think they just kept on using it. It really was a great way to reach patrons during the pandemic when libraries were closed and most people could not get to the library. The services were still being provided and patrons didn't lose access during that time. So the chat service was really a special thing, especially during the pandemic. So since 2003, I have some numbers. I love statistics. I love looking at these numbers and seeing how much they've changed. As of May 2022, which was the last full month before this presentation, we have had 452,253 total chat sessions with New York State librarians and patrons. That's a lot. 254,183 of those were initiated by patrons. That means when a patron goes on to the chat module and asks a question. And 200,362 of those were picked up by the New York State librarians and our cooperative. So those are the questions that we answered out of what New York State patrons asked. In 2022, we've had 16,850 total questions. 9,000 over 9,000 of those were initiated by patrons, and over 8,000 of those were picked up by the New York librarians. And why might you want to join? So we are a network. We're a network of New York State libraries who work together to provide this reference. We all work together, we communicate with each other, we have an internal listserv. People know to email me when they're having trouble with something on the service or something weird comes up, or they have a question about how to handle a certain question, or if there's policy problem. I will offer personalized virtual and in-person training for new participating libraries. We do have administrator manuals. The training manual is now a LibGuide because that was much easier to update. We offer free training if you're a member of the service. I communicate directly with Springshare staff to resolve software issues, and we work together to suggest enhancements for consortial groups. So that means if there's something on the service that doesn't seem like it's working as smoothly as it should, we can offer suggestions to Springshare, and they actually will consider them. When we made the migration, quite a few things came up, and they were amazing. They really worked with us to make some of these changes to make it run more smoothly. We have an advisory board that's made up of librarians in the New York State Service, and we meet and discuss different things we can do, different ideas to present to Springshare. We have a 20th anniversary coming up, so I'm discussing that as well. We provide direct billing, and we also provide discounted pricing for the Springshare service. So Wheeler is able to offer 10% off list price, which is really nice.
Caitlin,
Yes.
can you repeat that last bit because you froze for a second
Oh,
about the pricing? Thanks.
sorry. Yes, we offer a 10% a 10% discount off the Springshare pricing, list pricing. That was it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So in order to join, you would contact me with your institution FTE information. I will provide a quote for you based on that information. Then if you're still interested, we will set a join date, and that can be determined by the libraries. The billing model is calendar year, so January to December. But libraries can join at any part in the year, usually the pricing if they do. I would then coordinate with Springshare to set up the library's account and the queue, and then I will connect with whoever from that library will be doing the chatting, and we will connect and discuss training. So I've mostly been doing this virtually since the pandemic, but I will come in person too. We also provide marketing materials. So we have personalized bookmarks. I personalize them with the URL of the library that asks for them. And we also provide pencils. And the pencils seem to be very popular with students. And this is my contact information. You can always email me about questions about the service, and I'm happy to answer them. Even if you're just thinking about it or you just have a random question, I'm happy to answer any questions about the service. I invite questions, really what the service is about. We also have a website, and I actually was going to take you to that just to show you what it looks like. So this is askus247.org. You can also access it by entering askus247.libanswers.com. This is our LibAnswers page. It's also our official website. On the left side here, you can see we have 2 chat widgets, one for public library patrons and one for academic patrons. So they go to the separate respective queues, so that if someone asks a question in the public library widget, it will go to the public library queue. I have a little bit about the service. We have an FAQ with some common questions. This page is for all the overall state service. I have a link to all the libraries who participate in the service on the page. Our privacy policy information, but that is still crucial, and why you might want to become an Askus 24/7 library. And Springshare also provides information as well. Springshare does have training videos on the website. They have quite a lot actually with different features on the website that kind of help guide us in any new improvements that have been made. And they also have a great expansive FAQ. So I often have looked things up in here to try and figure something out when troubleshooting. But you can also email and contact the Springshare staff directly. And that is all I have to share. Oh, sorry, I did make a mistake on that slide. Sorry about that, Anna. Does anyone have any questions about the service?
It looks like we have a couple questions in the Q&A that I can read. Brenda asks, when is the busiest time for this service for public libraries?
It seems like it's usually in the evening for public libraries. I've gotten quite a lot of questions in the evenings and also in the mornings before 10 a.m. That seems to be an especially busy time.
Great. And then Brenda also asked, are prices for public libraries based on library budget, or how is the pricing determined?
The pricing is actually based on the FTE information. So it is from like 0 to 500 to 1,000. So it is based on that range. So depending on how many people your library tends to serve, we base it on that.
Great. If anyone else has any more questions or follow-ups to those, please put them in the Q&A. Someone is in the chat, Cindy wrote or asked, can you turn the service on and off? For example, only activate it overnight to be available to patrons when our library isn't open.
I believe you can. I think it's just a matter of, hi Cindy, I think it's just a matter of tweaking your widget to turn on when there are specific hours. So I can email you and work with you on that.
Great, thanks Cindy. Thanks Brenda for your questions earlier.
Yeah, it actually should be doing that already. No, it's not only activated already. Okay, so you don't want it on during the day. Yeah, we can work on that.
we still have plenty of time if anyone has any other questions. Otherwise, Caitlin did share her email information that she can and is available to answer questions at any time. So
Yeah, I will put my email in the chat too. And the service has been around for a very long time, and we do have a lot of libraries that participate, which is pretty cool.
what's the total number of libraries that are active right now?
45.
45.
Yeah.
You might have
Yes.
said that earlier and I was.
That's
dealing
right.
with it, so.
Yeah, we have 45 academic libraries currently in the service right now.
I also included the evaluation form and the certificate of attendance request form earlier, and I'm going to share it one more time. And there's also the link to the other services, ESLN services webinars. And I also wanted to share that our next session is on July 29th, and you'll be hearing from me about academic overdrive. And so that is happening. And I was going to share the link to that as well.
I agree with that, Holly. Holly mentioned that they are current users from Potsdam, and that she would recommend putting in tickets if there's the least doubt about a need for follow-up. And I completely agree with that. There have been times where I felt like I answered the person's question, but the person didn't respond. So I would still create a ticket for follow-up if I had their email information, just to be on the safe side. You know, the local librarian at that library can make the final determination if that person's question was answered or not. So there's a lot of moral support, I think, in our network of virtual reference chatting librarians. We definitely support each other, and I think we all really want this to be a very high quality service, and we work really hard to maintain that level of quality to make sure the patrons are getting crucial information, good responses, and what they need.
Oh, would you be able to do a brief demo, perhaps set up a test session?
Sure. I could do one right now. I can log in right now. So.
And while Caitlin's getting set up, the other sessions that we have already had in this series are available to watch as recordings on YouTube. And I can add the link to that as well. And they also have all the slides from those previous sessions. So it's a lot of information, and so you can get to it at your leisure. And I hope you can join me next month for the next session. We've had quite a few libraries across the state join Academic Overdrive, so it's really flourishing right now.
So this is actually what the chat window looks like. I just logged in. I have my settings turned on. So we have Ask Us 24/7 Academic, Ask Us 24/7 Public, Public Global Cooperative, and Academic Global Cooperative. So I have these all turned on right now, but normally I'm only monitoring just the public or just the academic, and the same goes for all the librarians who participate. And here you can see there's a couple pitching chats happening right now. I'm not going to claim that one because I'm actually not on shift right now. But I do have one from Christy. So I'm going to click on that. And she's asking what the weather is like in Vermont. So I'm going to claim this chat, which is this button down here. I'm gonna tell her it is beautiful because I am actually in Vermont right now. As you can see, there's 3 tabs up here. One is for the chat, that's for my chat window with Christy. I have patron information. This is where I can see her name. I can see her email if she provided one. She did not provide one today. I can see where she's coming from. She's coming from our Ask Us 24/7 website in the public libraries widget. And here is our staffing FAQ. So this is actually for the Western New York Library Resources Council statewide policy page. It's not for an individual library because New York is not an actual library. So I just have some general information that is sharing that it's not coming from the page of a participating library, and to make sure you find out what library you're coming from before you create a ticket. But I also had a link to my URL, my contact information, my phone number, our staffing hours, and the Novel New York databases and some general databases. I probably need to update some of those. Christy said it was great to hear that, and I'm just gonna politely tell her, ask her if there's anything else I can help her with. While I'm waiting for her to respond, I'm going to show you that we do have canned messages. These are great. They're basically scripts. So I could just click one of these, which is closing, that says it looks like we've been disconnected. Thank you for using our chat service and have a great day. I could change it to, we have some for, it's taking longer than I thought to locate this information. Thanks for your patience. It just saves a little time so you don't have to type everything out because there are some things you find yourself saying over and over. Thank you so much for using our chat service. Have a great day. If I wanted to create a ticket, I would click here, which is create a ticket from this chat. And it will come up with this window where I could potentially assign it to a specific person. I would enter her email. If I got Christy's email from her, I can add an internal note to the ticket. So if I had a personal question about my interaction with the patron, I could just add that information in there. And only the librarian from the library would see that, and they could, address that if they needed to. We can also email chat transcripts to the person in question. So I would, again, if I had Christy's email, I would put it right here and click send transcript, and she would get a copy of the transcript. We can also transfer chats to other chatting librarians. So if I was chatting with Christy, I know she's from Northern New York, and she's asking a really specific question about Northern New York that I'm not sure the answer to, but I see that somebody else, a chatting librarian from Northern New York, is in here. I am that librarian and say, hey, I've got one of your patrons here. They're asking a very specific question that I'm not sure of the answer to. Would you be able to take them? And that librarian would say yes, and I could transfer. I would tell Christy, hang on, I've got your local librarian here. I'm going to transfer you to them, and I can actually transfer her current chat to that librarian who would finish up with Christy and be able to address her needs more specifically. I'm just going to end this chat. I'm going to close it. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Hopefully that was a little illuminating for some of you who aren't used to the chat model.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Great. Well,
Any other questions for Caitlin while we have her live? Thank you, Brenda. And if you do have any follow-ups, please be sure to reach out to Caitlin. She's very approachable and very, there to answer them. And we will be sending out the link to the recording and the slides as well. But thank you all for being here, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend ahead of you, and I hope the weather is agreeable. And thank you, Caitlin, for sharing Ask Us 24/7 with everyone. And if there's nothing else, we can sign off.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Everyone,
you. Thank you, Caitlin. Bye.
bye.